infrastructure. Many on the left are pulling items from the top of a progressive wish list and calling them infrastructure to exploit our country's genuine needs. But adding pork to get yourself reelected means actual infrastructure suffers. Most recently, our pipelines have proved to be vulnerable under the Biden administration. Here to speak with us today about the situation is Executive Vice President at the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. Brandon, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Now, Brandon, Republicans have recently said that they will oppose raising taxes to pay for Biden's proposed infrastructure plan. Biden continues to insist that this isn't a partisan issue and that he himself is not an especially partisan president. What's the contention between this messaging and the reality?
Well, if you talk about infrastructure, there is bipartisanship. There is a willingness for Republicans and Democrats to work together to provide funding for critical needs like roads, bridges, and highways. The problem here, of course, is the Biden administration's infrastructure plan has a little bit of that, but a lot of other things that are completely unrelated to infrastructure. They may be important priorities for some on the left, but they aren't infrastructure. You talk about a $400 billion expansion of Medicaid for home health care. That's not infrastructure. When you talk about free community college tuition, that's not infrastructure. When you talk about an expansion of the child tax credit, again, these may be good or bad policies, but they're not infrastructure. And when they're combined, of course, with some of the largest tax increases that our nation's ever seen, you certainly throw away the notion of being able to do this in a bipartisan fashion. These are just poison pills for any kind of productive bipartisan conversation.
Now, the GOP has also put forth an infrastructure proposal. Can you tell us what's in it and what it accomplishes that's different from Biden's plan?
Yeah, there are a couple of Republican infrastructure plans, actually. There's a group of Republicans in the Senate led by Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia that has introduced a plan that they're still working on, but it's about an $800 billion plan, considerably less than the $4 trillion combined plan that the Biden administration has introduced. And then there's a plan that just came out yesterday from House Republicans that I think deserves a lot of attention. Not only is it smaller in terms of its price tag at $400 billion, but it also makes our transportation process, our construction process, far more efficient and cost effective for taxpayers. Listen, we need an environmental review process when we're building new roads and highways and so forth. But that process should not take years or even decades as it currently does. This bill, what the House Republicans have introduced, streamlines the regulatory process so we can get to the potholes, get to the bridges that are crumbling much more quickly, and on a more cost-efficient manner. So I think that's what's really missing as the senators are negotiating with this White House over how big the package should be. They're somewhat missing out on a very important point, which is what should be in there and what can we do to make our dollars stretch even further as they pertain to infrastructure spending.
So, Brandon, it's great to hear what's different between the two, but what do you think will actually happen with these two different proposals?
Yeah, I wish I could be more optimistic here, but what normally happens in Washington, from my experience, is that we end up spending more than we expected. If you look at the left, people like AOC and on the far left are saying they want to spend $10 trillion on infrastructure, more than double what the Biden administration wants. Republicans being in the minority, they have a say, but not that much of a say. So I think what we're going to get is a pretty large infrastructure package in the trillions of dollars. And they may leave those tax increases out of the initial package, but Democrats are going to come back and we are probably going to see a higher corporate income tax. We are probably going to see higher taxes on independent businesses. So there will be tax increases. It's not going to be a user fee model, which I think is what we support at National Taxpayers Union, what the House Republican bill supports. It's going to be trying to pin this on the wealthy and higher taxes on the wealthy. And of course, what's that going to do is slow down our economic recovery and reduce the number of jobs in this country. That's going to impact every single American in one shape or another.
Well, Brandon, fingers crossed that it will go in the way that protects all of our pocketbooks. Thank you so much for being with us here this morning on Save the Nation.
My pleasure.
Coming up,